Well, hello, this is Jimidism here. I got a little interesting thought that I just wanted to share with you and talk about. It's kind of a very deep subject, but it's really interesting because this perception would change how people see on the world and also förhåller sig till, react to it. And it's the notion if our mind, or soul if you say, continues into several lives, or if a life is just the universe experiencing itself in a way, and then just dies out. And it's not transferred in any way. Because if a soul, it's a bit of an abstract subject, but if we define the soul as what makes you feel that you are alive, that you have control, and being one isolated entity, it might just be so that everything that lives has it, or it might be so that everything that lives and also everything that doesn't live also have this experience. The question is here, it's very, very diffuse to where to draw the line. Where does one being stop and one being begin? In a human it's more simple, you can have the borders of your body, but there is also known that in your brain the several parts of the brain are conflicting over control and wants to do different things at one point in time. And what you think that only you made one decision is just an illusion. There were many of decisions. So it's really hard to grasp here. Is all those parts that conflict, do they have self-awareness? Or is self-awareness some kind of illusion? So knowing this, we know that what we discuss is very diffuse and might be hard to understand. However, if you think that life is just an entity, when it dies nothing of it exists, it really doesn't matter very much. If one isolated life lives long or dies shortly, if it has a good life, if it has suffering, if it's isolated, it won't affect anyone else. So that means it doesn't matter what happens to an isolated life that is only affecting itself and not anything else. However, if there is, many believe that the soul or the mind is continuing into like a substance. It's continuing to several lives, that people have lived lives before usually, and that there is something called, rebirth of the soul, and that like some believe in a karma system where your soul would manifest into a lesser being and more developed being dependent on what you have done. It's a bit different in all those parts, but there is it's a very widespread belief in especially older religions, but also a new movements that are coming up, that the soul is something that continues into several lives. However, this is not the case for the main directions of the Abrahamic religions, that is Christianity, Islam and Judaism. The main directions of those religions believe that there is one soul and one life, and then there is the afterlife. So I guess that many of you, which from my viewer base are likely to be Christian, would disagree with me on this point. However, it's a really interesting notion, because if there is, one soul and nothing afterwards, like the soul will not continue, it also means that those that not believe on a one supreme power that the Abrahamic religions propose would not have any kind of moral obligation to do anything good. Because how long a person live, how good they live, and anything like that doesn't matter to such a person that look on to these people. They would think like this: they don't benefit me, therefore they don't matter. So I guess that's what some of the Christian that feel that the non-religious don't have a moral. However, this is very interesting, because if the soul would continue to live into another lifetime, it also means that that soul could develop. Because many of those people that believe that the soul is a fluid entity, that also has a rebirth and a cycle like energy in general, which would make sense if the soul can be distilled to a thing. It is that the soul would have like personal development. So I think in astrology they talk about if you have experience from earlier generations or earlier lives, I think it's earlier lives of your soul, and also generation. I think it's two separate parts actually that would affect how you would behave today. But it is at least that there is saved some kind of development and some kind of energy from earlier lives of a soul entity that would help and change what your objectives, what you want to do into your current life. Because such a belief does also mean that a human does not only need, basic needs, food, somewhere to live. Most people in the world have, maybe many don't have overwhelmingly much of it. That's true, but most people in the world, of course, have somewhere to live and something to eat. But maybe to develop your soul, only surviving is not really enough. If you would believe that the soul needs to develop and there is some kind of objective that every person needs to do in every life, it also means that if the basic needs are fulfilled, well, that's a necessity, otherwise you die. But upon that, to continue developing the soul, there needs to be a setting where that is possible. And it changes, how we can look on what a happy person is. Because very many people that have great places to live and not near too little food are still unhappy. Maybe some of them don't even want to live. It's kind of serious because it's very strange in a way, because you have the basic needs fulfilled. Like, biologically speaking, there shouldn't be a problem. Why are these people unhappy? An idea of that could be that you could explain it as a sickness in the soul. If there is a soul that can continue several generations, that would not be able to develop in the direction that such a soul would need to develop for, or in preparation, or whatever you say, to the next life. Yeah. So I think that having a widespread perception that the soul is an entity that will continue into future generations is a perception that, true or not, will improve the human life standard and happiness. Because if you have an understanding that maybe there is more that people need than, something to eat, somewhere to live, and maybe even people that love them. Because even if people have food, somewhere to live, and people that love them, it doesn't mean that they are happy. It's a bit strange, I know. And it's of course very much from person to person, but it seems like depression is something that is more common in very developed countries. Like Finland and Sweden, for example. It's quite common with young people taking their own lives. Like suicide among the young is the biggest group. And those people, many are of course unhappy, and there might be exterior things that affect them. But if you take into perspective what people go through, it might be that when the basic needs are fulfilled, which is a necessity, you start thinking onto a soul objective, something that you need to develop. And if there is not possible in your setting or in a such society to develop your own soul, like maybe one soul would want to be more free to better take in experience, it might not be possible because you have to have your job, you have to do this, and that might actually do that people become more unhappy. And I know I repeated myself several times here, but I just got this thought that the perception of if this soul is just not something that continues, just dies away or is stored away for the Armageddon, or if it's just one that time, that soul will not continue, and that might make the society a much worse place to live in. Because with that notion, people think that it's not necessary for people to develop their own goals or something. They only need food and somewhere to live and a few people that love them, and that's all they need, nothing more. And such a society might not be the best solution. I think maybe we start to think on what do people want to develop? What do they need to work on? If there is a soul that would continue in future generations, this would benefit greatly to the development of the human species, maybe it's even something that things you develop and things you learn, maybe some of that information is stored into your DNA. And when you put it through future generations, all that you learn may be in some ways incorporated and such contribute to the human development. Or it might be that the soul is a separate entity that does affect a being in future and past lives and something around that. It's a very fluid and hard to grasp subject, but the fact that there is very many problems in the world and it might be closely connected on our perception on life, the soul, and what the purpose of the human species is, does indeed greatly change how the world works. And as the general perception is today, where hard-coded science is the new religion, some people say, and that if something is not proven, it's not true. And if something is proven, it's true until somebody shows this was wrong, and then everybody needs to change their beliefs. Like, well, I thought it wasn't really that way, but science said it was that way, so it has to be that way. You know, of course, you can probably trust all parts of science, except maybe you shouldn't trust the medical part of science too much, because if a medical company makes a drug that cures everyone, they're out of business. It's as simple as that. Follow the money, some wise people say. Well, it might be worth to think of that perhaps the soul is something that come and work into future generations. And if that's so, the world is not a very great set up place. Needs some good change. Well, thank you very much for listening or watching, and I'll see you in future videos. And you know what? Post what you think in the comments below, and I'll be trying to discuss this with you there if you have anything to say about it. Jimanism, signing out.